Chairman, good morning, Attorney General Bondi.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you're right. Good afternoon. It's been a long day. I wrote this morning. We've known each other a long time, and I'll always be appreciative for your assistance when you were Attorney General in Florida after the shooting at my high school at Marjory Stoneman Douglas in my hometown of Parkland when we passed a bipartisan bill, the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act, which was the largest policy response to a school shooting in American history. Your department also prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law a constituent of mine and former felon that had plans to kill me when he was picked up by law enforcement after he was target practicing in his backyard with 2 rifles, a scope, a silencer, 3,000 rounds of ammunition, an anti-Semitic manifesto. My name was the only name on their target list, and my kids found out about this from their friends at school. So thank you. However, the most transparent administration in American history. Before Trump, we didn't know the word transparency, apparently. It's been 12 months since you gave Republican influencers part 1 of the Epstein files. You said the list was on your desk. Then a memo came out and said that there was no list. Phase 2 of the binders never happened. The President of the United States says the Epstein thing is a hoax. He blasts his own base for wanting the release of the files. He blamed Barack Obama. Republicans voted against the release of the files in the Rules Committee. Then they refused to even return to the Rules Committee until they could be protected from future votes on the release. Speaker Johnson sends Congress home a day early before break. They sent the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell. She says something favorable about the president. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security facility. No one can explain why. Miraculously, the leaks to the Wall Street Journal stop. We come back from break. We have the Massey discharge petition. Republicans drop a rule, a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massey discharge petition. The White House says passing the Massey discharge petition is a hostile act. Trying to stop the necessary 218 signatures, according to Republican members that signed it, the White House brought them into the Situation Room, you know, the place where the president goes for time of war, promising things like appropriations or maybe even to primary them. People in the room say you were there. It didn't work. We get the 218 signatures. We eventually passed the Massey petition. You guys didn't release the files. You were forced by Congress, every member of the House except one, and the entire Senate. The reason the president signed it is because it was a veto-proof majority. We can't agree on anything, and yet the entire House but one member and the whole Senate forced the administration to release the files. Kash Patel under oath said to Senator Kennedy, the FBI is not in possession of any credible evidence that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone but himself. We know now that's not true. According to documents, Epstein had a worldwide sex trafficking ring. Girls from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Russia, Paris, modeling agencies sending him girls. He even had a relationship with a summer camp where he groomed girls at a picnic table. Ghislaine Maxwell says 29 Epstein associates cut secret DOJ deals. Turns out there is a list. 6 names readily available if you unredact them. Co-conspirators named, but we got them when you unredact them. Maxwell recently tells a House Oversight Committee that she wants clemency to release more names. Kash Patel under oath said Trump's name appears less than 100 times in the files. We now know that's not true. Trump's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God's name appears in the book about God. Okay, by the way, this is the Trump Bible. Move over, King James. Trump's name also appears more times in the Epstein file than Harry Potter's name appears in the 7 books about Harry Potter. Lutnick says that in 2008, he went to Epstein's home, says he had a massage table in the living room, that Epstein said he got one every day, that it was the right type of massage. He and his wife decide to leave and say they'll never be in a room with him again. Howard then says, I'm sure the Epstein stuff is all on video. He was the greatest blackmailer of all time. Well, how would Howard know that? But now the files are public, and in 2012, we find out that he and his family are on Epstein Island after Epstein pled guilty to state charges. I'm from Florida. I take my family to Disney World, not to Epstein Island. There are documents in the files that dispute the president's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his club. Allegedly, the president said that he asked Epstein to leave. Supported now, that's disputed, though, statements from the manager of the club. Now, Madam Attorney General, I have like 25 seconds left. So because I'm curious, and I'd like to see you flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm going to give it a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So first of all, nothing is funny about mocking the Bible and holding up a Trump Bible. That's what you did. You made a joke, and I find offense to that. That's all I have to say.
I want it from the burn book.
Shame.
I want it from the burn book, which is the best one. What you got?
Has expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Congressional oversight in 2026 has reached a fever pitch as the mandates of transparency clash with the internal directives of the Department of Justice. On February 11, 2026, the House Judiciary Committee became the site of a profound accountability audit led by Representative Jared Moskowitz. To understand the current legal landscape, we must analyze the specific tension between the Epstein Files Transparency Act and the administrative memos that have defined Pam Bondi's tenure as Attorney General. The hearing began with a significant procedural move, the introduction of receipts. Representative Moskowitz entered a series of documents into the record that outline a shift in federal law enforcement priorities. Central to this is National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, NSPM 7, and the Bondi DOJ memo of December 4, 2025. From an educational perspective, these documents represent a redefinition of domestic terrorism. The 2026 standard has expanded to include organized doxing, radical gender ideology, and anti-American sentiment as priority threats. For the viewer, the takeaway is the weaponization debate. While the administration argues these are necessary tools for public safety, critics, and organizations like the National Council of Nonprofits warn that they create a surveillance framework targeting dissenters and non-Christians. Image: a digital redacted stamp over a stack of legal binders. The discourse then shifted to the most contentious issue of the 2026 legislative cycle, the Epstein Files. Moskowitz detailed a timeline of miraculous events, starting with the Epstein Files Transparency Act passed in November 2025. Despite a veto-proof majority and a 427-to-1 House vote, the DOJ missed its 30-day deadline, leading to a series of heavily redacted releases. The legal core here is the Massey discharge petition. When the administration reportedly tried to block the release by bringing members into the Situation Room, a bipartisan group of 218 representatives forced the bill to the floor. By February 2026, the data showed a staggering discrepancy. While the administration claimed to have released the full files, only 3.5 million pages were published out of an estimated 6 million. Moskowitz's analysis provided a fact check on the contents of these files. Despite previous claims that the former president's name appeared fewer than 100 times, the unredacted documents revealed a much higher frequency. Using a provocative visual aid, the Trump Bible, Moskowitz argued that the president's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God appears in the Bible. From a legal standpoint, this highlights the credibility gap in executive disclosures. When the DOJ claims there is no credible evidence of a wider sex trafficking ring, yet files from Paris, Poland, and Russia indicate a global grooming network, it triggers a legislative contempt crisis. The hearing also touched on administrative quid pro quo. Moskowitz questioned the transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security facility following a meeting with the Deputy Attorney General and the sudden cessation of leaks to the Wall Street Journal. This represents the oversight of discretion, how the DOJ's administrative decisions are scrutinized for potential favoritism or witness management. The mention of 29 Epstein associates cutting secret deals suggests that the list Bondi previously denied possessing is, in fact, an active component of current federal binders. Furthermore, we must look at the personal stakes of oversight. In a moment of rare bipartisan history, Moskowitz acknowledged Bondi's past support following the Parkland shooting, only to pivot back to the burn book, the opposition research binders reportedly kept by the DOJ on its critics. This illustrates the duality of governance in 2026. An administration can be lauded for its past law enforcement successes while simultaneously being investigated for its current transparency failures. In summary, the February 2026 House Judiciary hearing reveals a government in a state of information warfare. Whether it is debating the deletion of studies on far-right terrorism or the veto-proof mandate to expose the Epstein network, every exchange is a lesson in how accountability is forced by a co-equal branch of government. These are not merely partisan talking points, they are the foundational questions that will determine the future of the FBI and the Department of Justice. By understanding the link between executive memorandums, discharge petitions, and the rule of law, viewers gain a clearer view of the legal standards that will define the American Republic for the next generation. Stay observant, because as the 2026 election approaches, the files of today will be the judgments of tomorrow.